Conservative leaders are going to gather in Arkansas for an event aimed at finding real solutions to the nation's problems. The America Leads Summit is hosted by Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson with a keynote address by former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice.
And Governor Hutchinson joins us now. Asa, always great talking to you. Thanks so much. When I hear conservative summit, I flinch because, my idea, I think kind of like yours, my idea of a conservative, somebody who follows, Burke, Russell Kirk, right, Ronald Reagan, Margaret Thatcher. We haven't seen a lot of that in some of these summits, but it looks like your summit's going to be different. Tell us about it.
Well, it is going to be different. It's important 3 weeks out from the election that the candidates, that the public focus on ideas that's going to help America. And so I think we ought to talk about problem solving and not just simply creating chaos. And there's real issues that we face, from China overseas to Russia to Saudi Arabia. We're going to be talking about those at the Ideas Summit today. We're going to have a great education panel that's going to have Governor Doug Ducey from Arizona, a real substantive leader, former Secretary Betsy DeVos. We're also going to talk about investing in middle America. So Steve Case, we're going to have Tom and Stuart Walton, who engages in entrepreneurial leadership and philanthropy that helps middle America in terms of education, but in terms of growth and creating tech jobs. So a lot's happening here, and we're excited about ideas and what it means for our future.
Well, what's so exciting is what you're saying is that you're talking about ideas, you're talking about reform and changes. I talked about Burke before. There are a lot of people running around with radical ideas. In the 60s and 70s, it was conservatives that actually defended institutions. And instead of tearing down institutions, they wanted to talk about how to reform institutions. And again, going back to Edmund Burke, he said a mob can tear down in hours what it takes a civilization a century to build. So talk about that. I don't want to sound like Bush 41, but I love the guy. So I'll use the word. Let's talk about that prudence in reform and not just trying to tear down institutions.
Well, absolutely. And it's important that we have an optimistic view of America. And whenever we have that in the mold of Ronald Reagan, then it helps to bring people together because we're united for the cause of freedom. And you mentioned some great founding leaders and thought leaders. One of the principles of conservatism is the limited government. And I think that's important to talk about because we don't want to get in the mold of conservatism that uses government to accomplish a social agenda all the time. And, whereas we need to at least think through, is this a proper role of government? We need to talk about a strong foreign policy, and America leads, again, Ronald Reagan, and the role of the private sector. And that's why we have entrepreneurial leadership and investment. But it's based upon principle and ideas and optimism about our future. To me, that's a good conservative approach and one that wins in America.
Governor, good morning. As Joe says, you're talking like a pre-Trump conservative, talking about issues that are important to Republicans and conservatives, or at least used to be. I'm wondering if you've spoken out from time to time against Donald Trump. You said his actions around January 6th and the election were disqualifying. You said it was a dereliction of duty, the way he acted on that day. And you've said as a party, Republicans shouldn't be talking about the past, shouldn't be talking about him, should be talking about issues. We've wondered many times why other Republicans don't take on Donald Trump at certain times. Have you seen any political consequences for speaking out when you have?
No, I mean, certainly it's important when I talk about unifying. If you're a Republican leader, you need to bring in that part of the base that has been very loyal to Donald Trump. I mean, there's issues that they care about that I care about. But you've also got a fringe element that wants to tear down our democracy, and they want to simply dwell upon the past. We've got to move beyond that. We can. And what I see in the Republican Party and the conservative movement is a refocus on ideas, a refocus on a post-Trump Republican Party that does move beyond that. Certainly, he's done some great things in terms of his leadership on conservative principles and supporting Israel. But as I've said, what happened on January 6th puts it all in a different context and what's happening post-presidency. And so you're not going to hear that the former President Trump's name mentioned in his conference, hardly any, I would suspect, because we're talking about ideas and we're not talking about personalities. And we're talking about really the important things that impact people at their breakfast table, but also the issues of America's leadership in this world. These are big challenges that we face. We need to have good minds and conservative thought that addresses these in a positive way.